Welcome to AlexGs Aquarium, everybody. Today I want to give an update on the 1600 gallon aquarium system. It's been over 8 months since I've made an update, and I really want to share with everybody all the ups and unfortunately some of the downs that have been going on with this aquarium system in that time. To start off, I want to talk about the 720 gallon fish tank, which has been doing phenomenally well. I haven't added a whole lot of fish in the last 8 months. I've added in a few more triggers. There's a blue line and a huma huma added. These fish have been doing great. The rest of the fish in the tank have also been doing really well. The angels that I have, the annularis angel or blue ring angel, is starting to get its adult color pattern, and the emperor angel is just starting to transition from a juvenile into an adult. And it's really been nice to see these fish making that transition and growing. Another fish in here which has probably shown the most growth that's noticeable to me at least is my little baby clown trigger that was about yay big when I got it. Almost was eaten by the porcupine puffer at one point, had its jaw dislocated when it got like halfway down the puffer's mouth. Thought that fish was not going to make it, was going to die because its jaw was dislocated. But about a month after that injury occurred, the clown trigger's jaw realigned itself, and the fish has been healthy and growing like a little weed ever since. And it is no longer a baby clown trigger, it is a small adult clown trigger at this point, and it's just been doing great. The puffers are doing good. All the fish in the 720 gallon tank have been doing phenomenal. And I've only got one loss to report in this tank, and it was a fish that I got just a couple of months ago. I got a high fin snapper, a small one. I know these fish do get very large, and I wanted to try it out and see how this fish would do, and it seemed like it was doing well. And about 2 months in, it got a little skinny all of a sudden, and I wasn't really sure why. And then one day I just found it dead. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there. If the fish just wasn't doing well, it didn't look like it was getting bullied or anything. But these things happen. One thing I did notice after that fish died was I have an automatic feeder that feeds pellets twice a day, and that feeder had been jammed up. So I'm wondering if it just wasn't getting enough regular food, and that possibly was contributing to the health of that fish. In either case, the fish are all doing great. The one coral in there, the blue ridge, is still going just fine. I will say one problem I am having with this tank though is the lighting. I have some old AI Vega color LEDs over this tank. They were the original LED lights I had on my aquarium before I moved to the Chicago area, so they're about 6 years old, 7 years old now, and the fans are starting to go on them. So unfortunately some of the LEDs have been kind of burning out or flickering on and off due to the temperatures of the units, which they're just getting old. I've tried to clean them off, and it's just not working. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is replacing those and getting some new lights over the 720 eventually. I'm thinking about going with some Reef bright strips. Not their XHOs, just their standard LED strips, since I'm not necessarily trying to keep coral in here right now. I think if I get a mix of blue and whites of those, I can have a really nice setup where I can get a couple of electrical timers and still have, a turn up of blues in the morning, and then go to daylights, and then reverse that cycle at night without much problem. That'll be something I'll be working on in the next few months. Moving on to the 480 gallon Reef aquarium. This is where things have really been up and down the last 8 months. Shortly after that update video, things started to kind of turn south. I started losing some corals. Specifically, I started losing SPS and LPS. And it was very odd because the deaths that I was getting in corals were very slow. It didn't seem that everything was just having a big crash all at once. The water parameters were still testing well, and I had even started to step up my water changes, doing 100 gallons a month, and then 100 gallons every couple of weeks, and I still was having problems. So as the main part of summer came in, I was still trying to do monthly water changes, and I even stepped those up to go from 100 gallons a month to 200 gallons a month, which really hadn't been doing any water changes. But the corals continued to still decline. And about 2 months ago, I really felt that I got a handle on what was going on potentially, and the coral deaths have stopped. So all that's going well. And I know the question is going to come out there is what was going on that caused all these coral deaths? And to be perfectly honest, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But one thing I do know is that I was using Fritz salt, and during the course of using it and stepping up more water changes with it, I was seeing more and more of the same slow coral deaths in SPS and LPS. I figure I lost about 75% of the different SPS colonies that I had going. Most of them were small frags. All my phobias except for 2 had been wiped out. My one torch coral I had, I lost the whole thing. That one actually went pretty quick. Lost all my branching hammers, a couple of the small bubble corals that I had that were just babies from a bigger colony I originally had that didn't make it. And I lost some blastomusas, I lost some frog spawns, my Weslephilias, Cyphastrias. There were a number of different corals that just they would do good and then suddenly they'd start to go bad. I really did think this was some form of chemical warfare going on in the tank possibly, but after seeing some other YouTubers and forum posts online about people experiencing very similar issues with Fritz salt, I decided that I too wanted to make a switch to something that I know that was a good standby for me for a long time, and that was just going to some reef crystals. I started doing 200-gallon water changes every 2 weeks with reef crystals, and everything stopped. I stopped losing things stopped going bad. Is it 100% the salt was to blame? I don't know, and I don't want to say that's the case. There could have been other factors going on. I do know though, without having pure evidence of it and a good scientific fact, you can't for sure say that that's what it was. But I will say that changing my salt, everything had stopped and things are starting to grow again. And I'm happy to report that a lot of the corals are starting to rebound and do really well. Some of the corals that didn't really seem affected by this were my soft corals, my zoanthids, my stereonepthias, my sinularias, my leathers. All those corals seem to really do pretty well throughout this whole time. They weren't growing a lot, but a lot of them now start to really take off and start growing again, which I'm happy to say is a good positive thing. As far as the tank goes, they said the SPS corals, I lost about 75% of them, so the left side of my tank is looking pretty barren right now. And I've been very hesitant to go in and start getting more SPS corals, just because I really don't want to take that risk yet until I know things are back to the way they should be. I bought a lot of SPS right before this started, and unfortunately I lost all but like 1 or 2 frags of it, so it was a little disappointing in that respect. On the other hand though, things are looking better, and that's always a good thing to say about a tank. When we go into the LPS section, I still have a lot of frog spawn. A lot of the colonies that I lost, they were pretty big colonies, so even though I lost, a third to half of them, I still had a lot. Unfortunately, the branching hammers, I lost all of those, but I could regain them. They're all aquaculture pieces. The handful of corals I lost that weren't ones that could be aquacultured, while it's disappointing to lose them, I'm still glad I was able to have them for almost 2 years before I lost them. So that was a good thing, and I have some great photographs of them as well to always be able to remember them. As far as the fish go in the tank, they're doing good. I've had a couple of losses. I think it's just been some attrition. I've had some threadfin cardinals that shoal of them is slowly whittled down, and it's never been anything very specific. It might be aggression, or it might be them just swimming into sea anemones or something at night, because they do seem to dart around a lot while the tank is got its lights off. And I'm down to 1 Royal Grama. So in 2 years I started with 6 Royal Gramas, and I am now down to 1. And that might be partially attributed just to age, it might be partially attributed to aggression. In either case, I think I'm going to add another group of Royal Gramas into the tank, as I feel that they did do pretty good together. Even though they had some small bouts of aggression here and there and territoriality, there's more rock in the tank now. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they do. The only other fish loss that I had is one of my fairy wrasses died. It was very random. It was a big fish, and I got it. It was a full-size adult fairy wrasse. So I don't know if that fish was old or something else happened with it. In either case, it did die. But I haven't added any new fish to the reef tank in quite some time. I've added a few corals. I was up at Reef-a-Palooza in Chicago, had a great time. Picked up a whole bunch of zoanthids because they have been doing good in the tank, and I've started to get a real affinity for them, because I gotta admit they were not my favorite coral for a long time. I gotta say, it's really been impressive to see them growing out, and I've put them into some other areas of the tank, and until I can get other stuff going again, I think I'm gonna really focus in on getting some nice zoanthid colonies growing. I have a beautiful zoanthid garden that's over 1 foot across, and it's continuing to just slowly grow out with several different varieties of zoanthids and paleozoa. So I'm really excited to see that all growing out nicely. For the rest of the aquarium system, the equipment side of things, everything's been going pretty well. I had one pump failure on my protein skimmer. One of my J-Bow pumps with a DIY needle wheel had a controller failure. This one it had a really bad DC connection at the controller, and it finally just stopped. I probably could have made it work again, but when you have a poor electrical connection and things are heating up, it's best to just replace it rather than try to make something work that could cause, an electrical hazard in the future. I do have another one of my original pumps that's still running strong. That controller's still got a really good connection, so I haven't seen any excessive heating or deformation of plastic or anything like that. The new pump, I did have to take the impeller off and remount it because they had a magnet change in their upgraded pump. It actually draws less wattage, so I think in the future I'm going to just continue to adopt some newer DC pumps and swap them out as time goes on. The main pump has also had its annual seal replacement get completed without any issues for the reflow hammerhead, so I'm happy to see that that's all good and done. And the biggest change I've got in the fish room has been the addition of the frag tank. Now, I was getting this installed around the time of my last update video. I was trying to get it going. I had gotten it plumbed in, got it running, got lights mounted, just didn't have it programmed, and I just stopped because of everything going on with life and work. And I finally got the lights up and running on it a couple weeks ago. I'm happy to say that I've got a little DIY frag rack in there, and I've actually cut a few frags of zoanthids and paleozoa, and I even have a stereoneptia frag that was in there. I also have my bounce mushroom, which was not doing well in the main tank. I think there were a couple factors of things that kind of bothered it. One, I think it was getting stung by a little ball anemone, which, kind of stung part of it, and it's just recovering at this point. I'm just going to give it time and space. It bleached out slightly there from where it was getting stung as well, but I think it's going to be okay. It's just going to take some time, and that's exactly what I want to give that coral there, is just time to recover. The Mantis Shrimp is still doing well in the refugium tank, even though all the glass is completely covered. I still feed her every other day, and still accepting food like a little pig. So was my green serpent star in there. So really no other complaints on that side of things. As far as the calcium reactor goes, it's still running like a champ. I've also got a Kimura on there because I wanted to get a peristaltic pump on there that just took away the whole idea of needing a needle valve. And I gotta say, I've had that thing running since late February or early March, and I've been really happy with the pump. I've just done a little bit of maintenance on it. Now, I will say it does have a little noise to it, but noise is not a factor that I look at with this aquarium system because it's loud and I know it is. Overall though, I can't complain. The aquarium system's still functioning pretty well despite having some losses of corals and just a couple of fish. I would say things are still doing pretty well. I'm hoping to continue to do a lot more with it this fall and winter. I'm going to try and get some more update videos out there. I can't guarantee how often I'll get them out there, but I know I've seen a lot of positive encouragement on the Reef to Reef forum, on YouTube comments, and also thank you to Reefing with O for having me on to do a live stream. It kind of encouraged me a little more to do this update video. That's the update on the 1600 gallon aquarium system. Sorry it was a bit of a long video, but I had a lot to talk about over the last 8 months of this aquarium's life cycle. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them down below. As always, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.